What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to continue my 2023 college football predictions for the 2023 college football season. Up next, it's the North Carolina Tar Heels team coming off a pretty good season last year. They won 9 games, went to the ACC championship, and then they kind of lost their last, 3 games of the season. It started with that NC State game at the end of the year where they just, kept losing and everything. So they lost 3 in a row to end out 2022. But looking at this North Carolina team heading into this year, the offense, I think, is going to be pretty explosive for this team. You got Drake May coming back at quarterback, and you got some talented wide receivers on this team. The defense is what concerns me about this North Carolina team, but I think this team is going to be really good, and they also have a potential maybe to win an ACC championship in 2023. So let's get right to the schedule for North Carolina. Again, coming off a 9-5 season. Looking at the schedule this year for North Carolina, they do play South Carolina and Charlotte. That's the big game there on September the 2nd. And then you got Appalachian State, Minnesota out of the Big Ten, and then you also got Campbell, so they do have a tough non-conference schedule this year. Appalachian State's not going to be pretty easy. I mean, that's a team out of the Sun Belt that's really good every year. They almost beat North Carolina last year. They had them on the schedule. And then you got Minnesota, a team that's going to be pretty quiet in the Big Ten, but they could be really overall pretty good. So North Carolina does have a pretty, tough non-conference schedule, but they also have to go through the ACC. They don't have to play Florida State on the schedule, which is pretty good. You avoid that team, and then you also you get Miami at home this year. You also have to play, though, Clemson and NC State both on the road. But let's get right to the game-by-game predictions here, and we'll go through and give you a prediction here for this North Carolina team. So North Carolina will kick off their season here against South Carolina. I've already done South Carolina's football prediction, and you already probably know who I picked to win this game. And yes, North Carolina is the prediction I picked here in this game. I do like North Carolina in this game. I just think with all the experience they have more than South Carolina, I think South Carolina is going to struggle on the defense this year. I think both defenses are pretty similar. They're going to probably struggle on both sides of the football. Actually, on the defensive side of the football, I think this will be a high-scoring game, but at the end of the day, with all the experience, it came down to the experience here for the neutral site games here. And I do like North Carolina in this game here against South Carolina in a close one. With that being said, I think North Carolina starts out 1-0, and then they start out 2-0 here with a win over Appalachian State. Now, the Appalachian State won't be an easy win. It will be a closer game than you think it will, like it was last year. I think this time it will be a low-scoring game, though. I'm kind of expecting it to be a low-scoring game this year, but I think Appalachian State will compete in that one. But I got North Carolina winning that one. Then it's Minnesota here on September the 16th. A big non-conference game here against the Golden Gophers. Minnesota's going to be a pretty quiet team this year. They did lose a lot of production from last year's team. I kind of expect them to start really struggling on the offensive side of the football, but maybe they'll get better and maybe they make this game pretty interesting. But, North Carolina does have home field advantage in this game, and I think they'll be favorites probably perhaps as well. I think they put up a lot of points in this game, but I think Minnesota puts up a fight. But at the end of the day, I think North Carolina does win here at the end of the day here because they are at home, and I got North Carolina starting out now 3-0. Then it's Pittsburgh on the road after that, so they do play their first ACC matchup here on the road at Pittsburgh. And again, there's no divisions in the ACC this year. That's the difference about the conference. But Pittsburgh, this game is on the road. It could be a pretty interesting game. I did Pittsburgh's prediction yesterday, but Pittsburgh lost a lot of production from last year. They lost a really good group of wide receivers. They also, lost some pretty good defensive players. The offense still should be pretty good for them. They got some talented running backs. Maybe Pittsburgh has to run the football all over this defense for North Carolina, but I think North Carolina just has way too much talent on the offensive side of the football. With that being said, I'm going to go with the Tar Heels here to knock off Pittsburgh on the road. They get a bye week rather early here, and they get a bye week before playing Syracuse here at home on October the 7th. Syracuse has a lot of production coming back. This could be a very interesting game. I think Syracuse can keep this game close here, even though North Carolina is at home. But maybe it's one of those shootout-type games. Syracuse is going to have a pretty good offense. It's one of those, high-scoring games. It maybe comes down to the wire. But North Carolina is at home, and with that being said, home field advantage does favor the Tar Heels. That being said, I think North Carolina escapes with a win over the Syracuse Orange, and I got North Carolina improving to 5-0. Then it's Miami here on October the 14th, a team coming off a really tough season last year. When the divisions were still out, it was basically Miami and North Carolina controlling this division in the Coastal, but now it's really not about divisions. It's now just about all the ACC. This will be a very tough game, though, for North Carolina. I don't expect it to be really a blowout. I think Miami's going to compete in this game because Miami does have a lot of production coming back. I think they'll keep this game close, but North Carolina does have home field advantage. These are games where I just can't really predict it against them. I have to go with home field advantage in this one. With that being said, I think North Carolina does win this one here at home on October the 14th against the Hurricanes, and I got North Carolina improving to 6-0. Then it's Virginia after that on October the 21st. Not expecting a pretty close game here. I don't think Virginia is going to be all that good this year. I think they're going to pretty much struggle like they did last year. With that being said, I think North Carolina puts up big points here, and they take care of business against the Cavaliers of Virginia, and I got them improving to 7-0. Then it's Georgia Tech on the road after that on October the 28th. Georgia Tech made a lot of progress last year, going 5-7. And remember, last year Georgia Tech defeated North Carolina at home for the Tar Heels. This year it's on the road for North Carolina. Could Georgia Tech possibly pull off another upset here? I really don't see that happening, though. I think Georgia Tech, it's going to take a little time for them to really start competing in the ACC. And it's going to take them time, to really get back to that level where they used to be. With that being said, I think North Carolina just has way too much talent on their roster for Georgia Tech to handle. And I think North Carolina does escape Georgia Tech on the road with a win. So I got North Carolina improving to 8-0. Then they defeat Campbell here, so I got North Carolina now improving to 9-0. And then they play Duke here on November the 11th. Rival game here against the Duke Blue Devils. Big game here. This is a home game for North Carolina. I think this game is going to go back and forth. You got Duke, who's got a lot of production coming back, the second most production percentage in the ACC this year. North Carolina, though, has got a talented offense. I think Duke is going to really compete in this game. I really don't expect this game to really be a short-scoring type game. I think this is one of those shootout-type games, but it's just one of those 50-50 games as well. It's one of those rival games you just never know what can happen, but it's also a 50-50 game for me. With that being said, 50-50 games mean that it goes to home field advantage, and with that being said, North Carolina does get this game at home. And that being said, I'm going to go with North Carolina here to knock off Duke on November the 11th, so I got North Carolina remaining undefeated here at 10-0. Then it's Clemson on the road here on November 18th, and they got NC State here on the road as well on November 25th. So you got back-to-back road games here for the Tar Heels. Clemson, though, let's start with them first. Clemson's going to have the defense to stop this North Carolina offense to make it a really tricky game here for the Tar Heels. I think this game can go back and forth. Maybe it's one of those defensive games. Maybe the offenses just don't really get anything going. Besides the Tar Heels defense, I think will be better by this time. Clemson, though, I think is the more talented team here. It's a rematch from last year's ACC championship. I forgot to mention that one as well. But I think Clemson is just the better overall team. I think they got the more talented team than North Carolina. With that being said, this could be a matchup here between two unbeaten teams. With that being said, though, I think Clemson does escape here with a win over North Carolina, and they also give them their first loss of the season. Like I said, I think Clemson and North Carolina will go back and forth in the first half, and maybe the Tigers will pull away. So I got Clemson winning that one. Then it's NC State on the road to end things out here. NC State's going to be a pretty different team this year. No Devin Leary at quarterback, but this game is on the road. It's not going to be an easy game here for North Carolina. It's one of those rival games. It's kind of similar to Duke. It's a game that can go either way, and it maybe is a high-scoring game. Last year, NC State defeated North Carolina on the road. Could North Carolina do that this time? Could they defeat NC State on the road this time? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think NC State, with them being at home here, and obviously a 50-50 game, rival game, you never know what can happen. I'm going to say that the Wolfpack do pull off an upset here and give North Carolina their second loss of the season. And I got the Tar Heels of North Carolina finishing 10-2 in 2023. And as you can tell, I'm very high on the Tar Heels this year. Like I said, the schedule really sets up nicely for North Carolina. Even though they do have a tough non-conference schedule, they do play Minnesota and Appalachian State both at home this year. that's not a tough schedule when you look at it. So, yeah, North Carolina does have a pretty easy schedule. They do play Miami as well at home. So, I could very well see this team going 9-3 perhaps, maybe, 8-4, but I think, 10-2 or 11-1. It would really shock me if North Carolina did go undefeated at 12-0, but don't sleep on that South Carolina game. Like I said, there's a good chance of them going 9-3. So that's my official prediction for the North Carolina Tar Heels is 10-2. Let me guys know what you think about this North Carolina team. What do you think their record is in 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.